Mere Mortals is back, episode 79. Today, we are meandering. We are talking a little bit of whatever we want.
Yep.
Because that is how you meander.
Exactly.
Kyrin, welcome. Under the bright lights of the Mere Mortal land.
It's looking good.
I want us to begin with something that it was like escaping my mind. I was like, what do I want to talk about today? But this is what I want to get to. Being proud of being a mere mortal. And that's not the terminology of like us doing Mere Mortals, the podcast, the media, the company, or if you want to call yourself out there a mere mortal, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, a mere mortal whatever you want to. You're a mere mortal. But it sort of struck me a little bit. I was listening to a couple of podcasts, especially those ones where they kind of almost glorify the people at the very top, like the Michael Phelps, the Tiger Woods, the people who are amazing. And sure, they've done a lot of work. They've got God-given talents. They've got all these genes, etc. That makes them amazing. But I think a lot of people get themselves down when you compare yourself up to that level. Everyone would, right? If you start comparing yourself. That's like the equivalent of you going golfing a couple of times, maybe for a year or two, and then you start comparing yourself to Tiger Woods, and you go, oh, well, I'm never going to be that great. I'm pretty crap, right? Objectively, sure, you're not as good as Tiger Woods, and you might never be, and that's fine. But I think on that bit of like, that's fine, where people aren't distracted of just being a mere mortal, it makes me think a little bit like bringing down the expectation of, you know what, you are a mere mortal. That is a good place to be. Like, it's okay to say, sure, I got to this equivalent level, and being like, you know, I'm happy. I'm a mere mortal. Now, don't take me as saying that you should like deviate from pushing hard and trying to achieve like amazing things. No, you should still try to push the boundaries. But I think if more people recognize that we are just mortals, not some sort of superhuman that can do everything just amazingly well, I think we'd all be so mentally like much better. And it reflects on me. I was looking at my target for fitness, and I'm not going to get too deep in it because we're going to have further discussions on the yearly goals and everything. But one particular area, I was like, okay, running. And then I started, okay, how am I going to say what sort of level I want to get to? What do I want to target? And I started like almost looking at world record paces, right? You know me. If I'm going to go at something, I'm going to go like 100%.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be like, do I calculate like 10% of that and calculate the pace? Yeah. And the more I thought about it, I was like, no, like actually, I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not going to achieve that. Like, I'm not actually a properly good runner. It's not going to be achieved, even if I wanted to. But two, I mean, actually, no, what I would consider like for me to be like, I've really impressed with my achievement to do this is probably at a range much lower. Again, still kind of pushing my boundaries, but it's sort of like accepted that, oh yeah, I'm a mere mortal. This is what's going to make me happy. It isn't top world level because I know I'm not aiming for that. It's never going to be. But I can be in acceptance to be like, I'm a mere mortal. It's okay to be achieving this and then be proud of it. I think that's what a lot of people fail to realize. So I wanted to ask you that viewpoint where it's like, we sometimes glorify the people at the top, but there's a reason we do it because they are the top in the world.
Yeah.
Or whatever particular thing. Do you like that thought process of accepting mere mortality, or do you disagree with it and go, actually, no, you should still try to be like, try to just go beyond?
I've been dealing with that these past couple of days, actually.
Oh, okay.
So, the first one is actually, well, we do that as well. Like, we've talked about Michael Phelps. We've talked about Elon Musk. We've talked about all those sorts of people plenty of times on this podcast. And we haven't given enough, probably not given enough shout outs to Dave down the corner. So Dave, this is for you, mate. The second bit is I was actually dealing with that today a little bit. Not today, but last night and the past couple of nights, where I sort of like to relax in the evenings and watch shit that just turns my brain off, so I don't have to think. So I'm thinking all day. I want something I can sort of just blob out to, and I found a YouTube channel called like Trambolino Compilation or something. And what it is, I think it's a Russian channel, and basically it's got just a collection of like funny clips from the internet, and they put it together, and then there's some sort of meme stuff, but it's more people doing things. And I found one which was like People Are Awesome edition 15 or whatever, and they had a playlist where it was all of them. And even just watching that, man, I was starting to like get a bit down on myself because there's people doing all these incredible things.
Yep.
Girls managing to do like full splits, going into a handspring backstand, or like forward flip into a side splits and all this sorts of crazy stuff. And then there's dudes riding motorbikes and, you know, doing just absolutely insane things. And even just watching that made me think like, oh man, I'm so shit with my handstands. You know, they're not at even this level where this chick is doing this whatever crazy thing.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm not even getting close to this, and this I can see this human just doing it just so much better.
Exactly. And you know, it took a real conscious effort on my part to go, okay, wait, first of all, there's just one thing they're good at. You know, you're not seeing all the effort. I know all the effort that goes into that behind that.
Yep.
100% guaranteed. But yeah, the fact was like, it sort of made me feel like, oh, every moment of their life would be living like this. You know, they're doing a handstand every moment of their life. They're getting the praise, the glory, the whatever it is. And it took like a real conscious effort on my part. So I suppose with what you were saying, you know, there's a good reason to glorify people and talk about the people at the top for sure. But I think, you have to have that conscious effort as well, like to not judge yourself. And it's really hard. Everyone falls into it, man.
The way
really, really
in
hard.
my mind, came to my mind, right? And I don't know if you ever played this. Did you ever play Skyrim, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls games?
No.
Okay. I'll explain. You might have played another game that has this, but to people at home that are playing the game, you might have played this or a similar game. I think if you consider it almost, right? A human, if you're given 100 points, right? You have 100 points distributed into all your attributes.
Yeah.
Now, some people in humanity will be higher points, whether it's genetics, whether it's where you're born, you know, the society you live in, the culture you live in.
Yep.
Maybe you can have 110 points as you begin. At the lower end, you might have 90 points, but there's a range. There's 90 to 110, let's just say, theoretically. You have all the attributes. Imagine all the attributes you can think of. Those are all your attributes. You have that many to distribute. In essence, I think if you wanted to just imagine it just as like you have 110 to a 90 sort of points to distribute, you'll generally, across your whole life, you'll be able to distribute those points across those different attributes. Those individuals like a Tiger Woods, like a Mark, what do you call it? Anyway, right, Usain Bolt. All of them will probably have some beginning stats on some of those things for like your speed or whatever. And in essence, they can just add on and pile it all into one go. And sure, you can glorify them. They become like the absolute top of the world at that particular thing. But if you consider it that way, how many other things have they let go on the side to become the very best at this particular thing? And I think that's where we can get our mindset all stuck up, because we think that they're super amazing here and they probably are just as good as us in everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where I get really stuck when I look at other people that I converse with and, you know, look at it at a really high level and I go, oh man, like this person is at like this ridiculous level doing all these sort of things or businesses, and everything else they do must be like amazing. But a lot of the times, like, oh no, actually their health and fitness is falling because they couldn't keep it up, or they have no relationships because, you know, they just have no time. So it's always a bit of a give and take.
Well, not even that as well. That exact same person in a situation where you are in regularly, where you are maybe speaking with someone in English, and then you see someone or hear someone speaking Spanish, and you are able to converse with them and sort of switch between the two, you know, no worries. That sort of person looking at you in that situation would be like, oh my God, like this guy's crazy. He can speak two different languages. He's holding court like between two different groups at the same time. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's not even that, you know, I think it's really hard, this whole topic, because you can fall into so many different traps. One trap would be looking at those people and then saying to yourself to make yourself feel better, oh yeah, I bet their health and fitness is shit. Oh yeah, I bet they have shit relationships. Oh yeah, I bet blah, blah, blah. Which, you know, might be true in some cases, but it's not healthy for you to think that way, you know, trying to tear people down like that. But it's also, you need to recognize, like, if you get to the top of something, you are going to have to necessarily give away, you know, lots of other things. Yeah, well, and then that's what, and I was just having a bit of a review, and I want to talk about this particular thing, the way I've been able to retrieve some things. But it reminds me of a quote from Murakami's book, What to Talk About When I Talk About Running. And one of it, it says relating to this, right? It says, in the final analysis, we are all the same. And I originally saw that as like just a comparative of like an individual, like you're comparing, oh, this individual is another human being. But I think I even now take that to mean like, you know, in the end, we're all just like, we have the raw materials that any other human has, with some
particular place in society or culture or location that we live in. But generally, you can't make yourself feel down because all of a sudden you're not the top at like absolutely everything. It is just going to be placed on how much energy you're spending into one area to move yourself across the others. But if you took like all of humanity as in total, you're going to probably find there's a pretty similar average on like the amount of energy that you'll spend across every different attribute. It's all going to end up being the same, whether you want to talk about seconds or time that you're awake or anything else. Like everyone in the world has 16 hours of time that you're awake, give or take. And what you do with that is whatever you want to do. So if you spend 15 hours training for running and you're only spending 1 hour, like it's not hard to see what's going to happen after 3 years of that. And then you can't also be totally expecting you're going to be the best in the world, but also being accepting like, okay, well, the amount of energy I'm putting here or the amount of like points I'm putting to this attribute, I can expect to be, this is what a top mere mortal in this level would be, and be happy with that and be acceptance, but never be like, oh, well, because you'll get so many people out there being like, oh, well, I'm so busy and I've got a baby and I'm doing all this stuff and I've got a busy job, but I want to run a marathon, and being like, okay, well, like if you can't put in the effort to do it, you got to think into it. Well, what's a priority, your kid or you're running? And if you say, well, it's your kid, be like, okay, like that's understandable. Like it's not like you're all of a sudden going to be able to run a marathon out of just sheer will, or you're going to make yourself angry just because you don't have the time. Like, okay, that's your priority. Like, sure, it's what you want to do, but if that's the priority, it's going to happen, then you're going to do it. Some other people out there are going to be like, my priority. If you're an Olympic runner, you might say like, no, you got to take my baby and look after them because I'm going to prioritize this. Now, that's their choice. That's where they put the energy. That's why they end up perhaps winning. So,
yeah. Another harsh thing is you can put in those 15 hours a day for 10 years and there can be some 16-year-old kid, probably Usain Bolt, who comes along, has done shit all effort. He hasn't done the effort because he literally hasn't had the time alive to put in as much as you have, and will just blow you out the water. Like make you look like you've never trained a day in your life. So there's that factor as well. You got to
even get something simpler that probably a lot of people can understand. Speaking Spanish. You're learning Spanish right now, and you probably know more words in the Spanish language than I do. In terms
probably
of
getting to that stage, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting to the point that you know that more, but there will never come a point that you could speak better Spanish than me, just purely because I'm like, I've already have it like as a native language. Like I'll always be able to understand it in my brain from subconscious than you can.
To get to that point, I would have to, live a Spanish life for probably like 20 years.
Yeah, or something like that. It would be so at that point, and this could be, to a lot of other things. Like it's the same thing as, if you're a pilot for 20 years and then someone begins at 1 or 2 years and thinks you're going to be that, or if you're natively doing something, it's like, okay, well, in that example, you can't be, painting yourself being like, well, I'm training or studying for 10 hours a day. Why not already like that? Truth of the matter is sometimes you either can't get there or it's going to take you, effort that's 20 years long for that amount of effort just to get to that level that someone just being born had that and just grew up in that way when they were a child. Like there's no other way to getting around it. And I think people just get themselves so depressed on that. And not just being like, I'm a mere mortal. Like you got to be happy with the fact that you're learning and improving, as opposed to just hating on yourself that you're not already at the top.
And rightly so, man. It's when you get down to it, life's really unfair, really unfair. And you get dealt with what you get dealt with, and you have to just try and make your best from there. And effort does produce a lot of results in the end, but also, you get what you get given. So
I like this too.
It's hard. It's hard to, you're not always, and I doubt you ever will really find that correct balance where it's like content with where you are, but also wanting to push forward and strive forward. Yeah. Getting those two together is very hard.
Well, I like this quote or rhetorics from two places. I don't know. I've been just getting smashing in all this special forces stuff in the last couple of. I go through between this period of just absorbing so much of it and then just kind of backing out, absorbing so much of it. Yeah. There's two, and I've known them for a while, but the little line that the SEALs have is the only easy day was yesterday, which I really like that. and the
Okay, never heard that one.
yeah,
That's
and
cool.
the SAS is the British SAS, which translated to the Australian one as well, because we call what's called the SASR, I believe. It's "Who dares wins" is their little
Okay. Yeah.
motto, slogan, or whatever it may be. I like that one even more, like the "Who dares wins." It's just in this context, we're moving a little bit, but it made me think like, oh, that is so cool. Like it's the person who like dares to push and go beyond like this the normal applicability that is like, okay, that's awesome.
You would love the quote. There's one quote which is more like those who dare greatly exceed or like even whatever. So that's like an extra level on top.
Oh,
of
that sounds
so you
good.
can tell
I like
the,
that. I like that.
The Australian SASR.
Yeah. Weak. Get to that level.
Got to dare greatly, and then you'll get to that level. Well, speaking of mere mortals hitting the top level, I have something we can both celebrate, to be honest, which is
Tell me.
I got some fitness points.
Oh, finally.
So,
Dang, I've forgotten about all those points. I just haven't achieved any of them. One point.
Oh, goddamn.
Man.
I've been busting my ass for the last two months. I was looking and I think it's about 2.5 months since either of us have got
any
points.
point.
And this is actually a really good one, a good case. So I was doing L-sits. So I'm going to do a little demonstration here.
Oh, good.
So L-sits basically where you're like, hands are on the ground. You just got to like lift your legs up.
Yep. You're looking at the camera right now. What if you couldn't
maybe
see
see
it,
it.
or if you're listening and you couldn't, it's just essentially you're putting your palms down vertically beside you with your feet sort of extended, and you're in a sitting position and just kind of pushing yourself up.
And Juan really struggles with this because his
I'm
arms
terrible,
are not
man.
long
Yeah.
enough, so he has
I can
to
only
sort of
just
like-
go past my body. Yeah.
You have to like suck in your inner organs to be able to do it. But anyway, there's been like a focus for the past 2.5 months especially since I hurt my hand. It's like, okay, I've got like time. I can do this one without any stress on the actual finger itself. So this is one I've been working on. Put it at the start of the session, doing a max hold every single time.
Yep.
During the sessions, we're doing little mini holds to try and build up the resistance over time. And like the last 4 days. So I got my points yesterday. And the 3 or 4 days before that, on Monday in particular, I was going, what the hell? Because my times were just dropping. I got 45 seconds 2 weeks ago, and then they just kept dropping. And I was like in the mid-30s. So there's a bit of a question for you. So you need to keep pushing, right? You got to keep pushing. And sometimes you're not going to see results, but things are happening, and then something will suddenly just happen out of nowhere, and you'll get a new PB.
Yeah.
How do you know when's that point to stop and give up? Because there are some times when you should give up because you won't. You're just grinding gears. Nothing's really happening.
Yep.
I was getting close to that point, man. I was thinking like, for me personally, I've got a little system in place where I've got a 4-week schedule for my
Like training
cycle, and I do not break it. Cannot be broken. Even if 2 weeks in, I feel something's not working. I'm not enjoying the exercise, whatever. I just keep doing it because of things like this. Because I know in my own mind I can psych myself out of things, and if I just give it that little bit of extra time, results will come. And whether it comes, probably this is not the best system because maybe 5 weeks is the optimal.
Yep.
And there's maybe been that week 4 where I'm like, I don't think this is really working. Start something new, and then if I just done it 1 week more, it would have been great. Yeah. But for you personally, how do you know when's the boundary point between stopping something which you don't think is working and pushing forward because I don't know, with faith, I guess that something is going to happen?
It's a good question. I'm going to first take it in the broad section. So not just fitness, even more things.
Yeah. This applies to everything.
When to know, when to quit.
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways to do it is when it's tough. Like everything that's worth it is going to be tough. Generally, when it gets really tough, when to know when to quit it. I'll have a think about in that particular moment. Okay. I see my progress where I'm up to now. Maybe it's either not so much or you're kind of halfway to whatever the target is. I'll always generally think, if I had to go and do this again, would I do it? If I look back and go, okay, I've made this progress or I've not been doing this much things that I noted down. If I had to start from the beginning, would I do it right now the same way? If the answer is no, I'll generally quit.
Okay.
Like if generally, so a concrete example for that would be if I'm running a particular feature or functionality for something, for a project or for a piece of a product or whatever it may be. And I've just been like headbutting myself against the wall to try to get something sorted out with a client or whatever it may be for 2 weeks. And I know I've got to get this over 6 weeks and I've got to get this information. And I look back at the 2 weeks and go, would I have done this again? And I'm like, no, definitely not. Like this is not working at all. For this, I'll go that particular part. No, okay. I'm stopping that. I'm going to try a completely different thing. However, if I was to look back at that point and go, no, looking back at it, I could see a couple of other possibilities I could take it. However, I still believe that is the right thing. Like if I had to go back again, I'd be doing it exactly the same way. Then I'd keep pushing. Then I'd go, no, I'm going to persevere because I think there's something more to persevere. So I think there's, when you get that feeling of like, should you quit or not? Probably retrospecting and looking at like from the beginning, would you still keep going or would you move along? And that can give you a bit of an idea of like, okay, will you continue to like prevail and doing things and potentially get over the hump, or is it you're essentially either just not going to get there because you're not providing enough energy, or it's the wrong path that you were taking? So obviously, as soon as you feel that, it's good, but trying to retrospect even before you reach that quitting point to be like, okay, am I doing the right thing? Should I change? Get going. And that can happen with training. So then specifically for like fitness, I think it's good to have like a 4-week cycle because as you say, it's like short enough period that even if you dislike something, you can be like, okay, well, I can just keep going for 2 more weeks. I'm going to get through it. And then I can change if I need to, or I can say, oh no, I achieved it. And then I can go and do something else if I need to. So it's like a short enough cycle to do that. You wouldn't go and do 1 year of training, the exact same thing, and in 9 months or 10 months be like, okay, this didn't really work. I should quit now. You should have retrospected on that like a long time ago.
Yeah.
When it comes to something that is not intellectual though, when it comes to something that's physical, so this is swimming, running, I don't know, rowing, gym, whatever it may be, then I'm not as lenient when it comes to things because I just believe we only we probably only really give it at what we think is our limit, max, probably 60% of the proper effort that you could probably give. So, let's just take a number. I think one of my numbers in here is like, okay, I want to get 177 kilo squat. And then the next level beyond that is 210. And then beyond that's 243. 3 numbers. Now, if I sit here right now, I could probably, same thing. I do sort of like 4-week cycles for training. I'm starting a new one essentially in a couple of days. And I'll start to think, okay, am I traveling towards that path? And I'll probably reflect at 4 weeks and go, okay, am I really going towards the right path? Or is there like different training ways that I should be doing? Is there whatever? But in that particular instance, it's not like I'm quitting and saying, no, I'm not going to achieve those numbers. It's like, okay, I see this as like, I'm either not enjoying it or something's wrong. I'm going to shift my target or try to change the way I'm doing it, but I'm still going to pursue that goal. Like it isn't like I'm just like, oh, I'm just giving up on it. Like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
It's going to, and the only point, so this is where it came to when I would quit for fitness, is like our rowing thing. It got to a point that I could see going all the way back to like the points. I would have to almost drop all of my other training in order to get this rowing goal that we'd set up.
Yeah.
Almost to that point. And I thought, is that worth it? Really in that? Like if I did it and then I looked back and was like, was that worth it? I would say no, it was not, because I gave up everything else and for just in order for this particular thing, which would have been good, but it wouldn't have been made up for everything else. So I reckon that's how it take a little bit of the, should I quit? Should I not?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking while you're saying that, I personally don't have a very good system. I think I have sort of unconsciously done some stuff in the past, which has maybe worked, and that's sort of how I do things. So I'll give you, a concrete example as well. This one being an intellectual one. So sometimes on an Excel sheet, right, I'll be trying to do some sort of function and just trying to get something done in this particular way. And it's like, okay, how much time am I willing to spend trying to research this without, with potentially the possibility of it being that it doesn't exist. You can't do this thing. How much time am I willing to spend on that? And, sometimes it's almost like it's necessary for me to put in a certain amount of work to then realize the function or whatever it is that it can be or you know, it's something as simple as like just copying the data, putting it into an untainted sheet, and then you can do it, and it's like real easy, like the first thing you do. So do I have a method for that? I really don't. I think it's somewhere maybe in like the range of like 2 to 3 hours that I'll try and do that, and then I'll be like, okay, if it's getting beyond this is getting too much. So it's also proportional to what you're trying to achieve as well. If you're trying to achieve let's say earning a certain amount of money, the amount of effort if you're trying to do it for yourself might be very different than if you were trying to earn it for like a cancer the group or whatever, so a charity. So, you know, maybe you'd put in 200 hours for that, but only 50 hours for yourself or something like that. So it's also proportional to, I guess, the meaning that you're deriving from it and how much you think it's worth.
Yeah, well, I was just going to tie it back here with that, right? So 2 things. One, from a quitting again perspective, or the one place I would say, again, not to quit on something is when it's like the thing that gives your life meaning, or what brings you joy, or what brings you happiness, right? What's like, you know, like, okay, that if I keep on trying to do that, it's going to give me bliss, right? All those things, no, don't quit. Like, you should just try as many different things. Essentially the journey. That's the journey of just trying various things. Like, if for you, like, meaning to your life is climbing Mount Everest, you know, you can figure out many, many different ways to get there. Even with like COVID right now, you can figure out, okay, well, I can train here in Australia and I can go climb this mountain and I can prepare doing this or blah, blah. There is all sorts of methods. Like, there shouldn't be a reason for you to quit, right? If that's super priority, there shouldn't be a quit in that particular perspective.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. That was a good question. I like that.
Yeah. Here's another one for you. Why I don't like short quotes. We talked about this before. I feel they need some context around it.
Always.
So if it's a short quote that you are just blabbing out of nowhere, I'm really going to get annoyed with it, because it's like, okay, what does this apply to? Because it's essentially a condensation, right? So when you're talking about a topic for a long while or whatever, that's where it's nice to have a short quote, gets to the point, gets to the heart of it, and sums up everything that you were talking about. What were you talking about with the ocean one in contracting? There's something like, don't try and boil the ocean. Like if I just heard that out of nowhere, that would be like, okay, that's a dumb quote, whatever. So it shouldn't be the kicking point off the combo. So we were talking about
I agree.
Tai Lopez not too long ago, and you're saying, you know, he's puts out shitloads of quotes. That's all he does. Now I actually talk. And I'd actually seen an interview with him it might have been with that guy or someone different, and I agreed that he didn't come across as bad as he did in those
video ads,
YouTube ads, which were the personification of annoying. But you know, he did that for a reason as well. And so that was one of those weird ones where it was like, okay, I don't think this guy's as bad as he is, as he came across in that, but I still don't think I'd really enjoy talking with him if that's all he's got to offer. Quotes taken from different places, and it's, you know, you can't have like the ramble that's almost necessary to then bring it down to a condensed point like that. So don't do that. Well, and telling you people, don't do that.
But, and that's it comes to this point. So that's the reason. So again, I'm still trialing it out, and I can show people sort of what it looks like for the OneNote. But that's where I think, okay, I'm not reading books or learning things to pick up quotes. Like, it isn't what it is. Because in this day and age, right, you don't need to recall things. You can search things. And sure, in a discussion like what we're having, or in person with someone, there might be an instance where you're like, oh yeah, there's this particular quote that would fit right in. But what I feel is more powerful is just not to know the quote specifically and like line for line, word for word, just more, there was this particular thing that I recall from this book that I read, or this thing I listened to, which you can then extrapolate and talk in your own words. It doesn't have to be their own specific words. That's why when I pulled up this particular one, which was all about, in the final analysis, we are all the same. You know, I could just have said, you know, in relation to Hariki's book, in what I talk about when I talk about running, he has a little of a point that sort of reflects my ideas of, you know, everyone, whether the really highest level or like a kid, in the end, we're kind of all the same. We're just all humans. So being able to extract that out and like the meaning for you That's the important thing, because you could spout a quote to anybody and you could take it in like many different ways, and it doesn't really truly show the complexity or like the depth of what you're trying to get out of it or what it meant for you.
Do you remember in high school having your English class or whatever, and you've got an assignment or exam, and they'd just give you a quote, and then you'd have to deconstruct it backwards. So you would have to be the one analyzing that. I hated that. That was one of the things about school that actually really annoyed me. Same with reading books I didn't want to read. Just took out the absolute passion I had from reading for like 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
And that was another thing I was going to get onto.
I was going to give it an advice, right? There's some advice, and it's advice that I would have loved to have when I was younger, because I went through a period, I think probably when I was like 12 through to 18, and I was a voracious reader. Like I read a lot of books, and that was like, normal stuff. Harry Potter, Artemis Fowl, Alex Rider, all these sort of books. I read them, the series, like 8, 9 books. I read them like 5 times over.
Yeah,
like I read them over and over and over, and I knew everything. Like I still recall everything in a lot of those things. But I stopped for a long point, and I think it was around that high school period through the university time where you were just like, much more like, here's information, here's some knowledge in terms of engineering or what you're learning, and force-fed this book, and you kind of just like, I don't want to do this anymore. You kind of like push back. Same thing came from like just general learning. The general learning which just kind of went away. It was like, okay, I'm just learning for a specific reason, a test, an assignment, whatever else. I think to rekindle that passion for like learning again is just, okay, I would more point it as, for me, it was the fact of like starting to look at things that I found a little bit of passion or enjoyment out of. So, for a potential point, it was like, okay, I had sort of the Tony Robbins style of learning that I was seeing, a little bit of the finances, and a little bit of sort of special forces and the way, like the tactics and habits that they're formed. And there was like 3 key areas that I was like, okay, I'm like, I enjoy like the topic, so I just want to find out more about it. And that led me to reading a few more books. And then from that, it kind of like spring like, oh, okay, well, I learned a lot of things from this one. Maybe I should find something similar. And then, this is the typical thing where you'll find an author and you might listen to him or someone who's interviewing him, and it'll kind of span out with 5 more because they recommend this book. And all of a sudden you've got like a list so huge that you'll never get across it. So, only 3 months ago, I had like 1 or 2 books on my list, or a couple of names, which has already spawned into like 30 authors. And I've already got like 7 books sitting there just waiting for me to read that I'm not going to get to till like the next year to finish all of them. So you can really quickly like spin up on like the things you want to chase down. But it's like that initial, like just getting everything rolling. I reckon just focus on things that you're like, you just find enjoyment, passion, just go find something and reading about it.
Yeah. Well, so you talked about learning, right? So finding the passion or enjoyment from learning. I think you can really apply this to everything. So I'm just thinking now, we both had the experience with reading where it became not something that we were passionate and really enjoyed, became non-fun, and we stopped doing it. I've had that with other things as well. So Spanish, for example, now it's, I sort of had in the reverse where there was a period and a point where I was trying to learn it, but it was like a grind. It was something I was forcing myself to do. Whereas now it's like, if I had more hours in the day, I would spend more. And it's almost, funnily enough, now there's less pressure on me to actually learn it, because I'm not planning on visiting South America anytime soon.
Yep.
Before there was, and that was why I was trying to learn it. And now that I'm not, now it's like, man, I really want to get deep in this. I want to become fluent.
Yep.
So I would sort of say, and this happens to a lot of people as well, you hear of people turning a passion pursuit into a business, and then they lose the passion for it. So just a recommendation for that is, if you noticed you were enjoying something or you love something, and then for whatever reason it disappears and goes away, and I didn't realize this at the time, you probably didn't either, that we'd stop reading. It's probably worth having a little bit of a reflection, looking back and saying like, okay, what's changed? Why was this thing that I really did enjoy, why is that now gone away? And I think a lot of the time you'll be surprised at what it is, and it might be a very easy fix to take away. So let's just take a hypothetical of someone, joining they used to love rowing, and then they join a rowing club, and now it's like, okay, you have to be here at this certain time every single day with these people. You've got some jackass yelling at you to get the times up, blah, blah, blah. and you stop going because it's like, God damn, I hate rowing apparently. Whereas if you were just kayaking on your own before, you loved it.
Yeah.
Things like that. So have a look
It's
at
always something-
externals, and I think for most of the time it's relatively easy fix. You just have to take away something, and then you can go back to doing what you were loving doing before.
Yep. Good. Meandering over.
Good.
However, it's not all over. If you want to catch us more, if you want to listen to us more, if you want to see us more, where can the folks at home find us?
YouTube. Go to YouTube.
What's the place?
We're getting a new camera.
Well, we have a new camera.
It's charging as we speak in the other room.
It is a beast. So I don't know if
hefty.
you can't. If you
It's
are looking,
it's
if
got
you
a lot of girth.
if you're currently looking at the video, just kind of like look back at the video through itself and look at the camera. You can't see it, but it's a smallish camera, right?
It's about this big, little handheld.
Yeah. So now
But
we're
now
getting
this next
girthy.
one.
We're getting big.
It's got a lot of character.
Yeah, it's got a lot of character. Yeah, a lot of
personality.
Yeah. So it's gonna be some good quality coming through. Obviously, the lights are helping out. So go check us out on YouTube. Leave a subscription if you want to be some nice individuals, some nice mere mortals out there. Come and join the mere mortalites.
It's worth having a look at the difference between the Jody Addis interview that Juan did and the video that was published straight after that.
Yep.
Because then
look
you
at that
can
quality. Look at that quality difference.
Then you can look at Juan and go, wow, he's
I thought he was from The Simpsons, but actually he's actually a normal human being.
I thought he'd been on a pirate boat for 50 years and was the spitting out scurvy left, right, and center. And
No, it's a good life to have a little bit more quality in our life. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mere Mortals. One out.
Kyrin out.